Well, this episode certainly took a very shocking, unexpected, and dark turn, huh? What Spinel had in mind to get rid of Amethio goes well beyond what any of us imagined, both in terms of complexity and wickedness. The result of his dastardly plan changes the game completely for this series, and it might have a significant impact on its future. Liko and Amethio's newfound understanding and respect for one another only makes all this even more profound, ensuring that the ramifications of this episode will have far-reaching effects. So let's break the episode down. I will tell you exactly what happened, my thoughts and opinions on it, and why it could lead to some insane consequences. The episode begins where the previous one ended, with Liko and Amethio trapped in a cavern. Terapagos still cannot stand Amethio, who explains that he is currently not a threat. Surprisingly, Terapagos calms down easily and immediately, which makes you wonder if it's just that gullible or forgiving, or if it can sense that Amethio has no ill intent. With this conflict resolved, Amethio begins to search for a way out, while Liko sits in a corner concerned about Roy and Dot, since she is making them worry about her again. Speaking of Roy and Dot, they are of course currently busy. While they try to reason with Coral and Gibeon, a peaceful resolution is not possible. So they try to run instead, but a stone edge and a blizzard puts an end to their escape. Garganako follows up with Salt Cure, which Quaxwell avoids, but Fuecoco doesn't. However, Quaxwell doesn't get away for long since he soon takes an ice spinner from Glalie. Gibeon tells Coral to take it easy since they are just here to stall for time. Realizing that they are after Liko, Roy and Dot decide to force their way through. Fuecoco uses Stomping Tantrum, which Garganako blocks with Stone Edge. However, this gives Quaxwell an opening to land a clean hit with Liquidation, dealing some serious damage. But Garganako uses Recover to heal up, so things are back to how they began. Back in the cavern, Liko begins to feel extremely cold. Floragato gathers dry grass from nearby to warm her up. This inspires Cerulege to warm up its trainer too, warming up my heart in the process. This is just so unexpectedly wholesome, and it reminds me of James. Amethio may be a villain, an antagonist, but he's not evil, evidenced by the fact that his Pokemon care about him, signifying that he treats them well. This is honestly such a small moment at first glance, but it beautifully humanizes Amethio, which is fitting considering what he and Liko will discuss and what happens later. So seeing this display of affection inspires Liko to put together the ideas of both Pokemon, which allows all of them to fight the cold and more effectively too. As they sit by the fire, Amethio wonders why Liko hesitated during their battle when confronted with terastalized Cerulege, a hesitation that I noticed and pointed out as a flaw that impedes her, so I'm glad that it's being addressed. Liko shares what happened with her implementation test, how she failed just when she felt that her hard work was paying off. She now feels like her goal is far out of reach. Amethio challenges her with the question of, is one stumble enough to make her give up and consider herself worthless? This forces Liko to realize that she is still not ready to admit defeat, since there is a lot she wants and needs to do. So Amethio, her supposed enemy, just inspired her to keep fighting for her dreams, yet again painting him in a much more positive light. Liko then wonders why Amethio saved her from Rayquaza back in episode 45. He denies doing so, but Liko insists that he did. Her point being that the explorers are evildoers who are after Terapagos and Rayquaza, yet there is something different about Amethio. She then demands to know why they need Terapagos and Rayquaza. Amethio says that it's all for the sake of Gibeon, his grandfather and the leader of the explorers, who wants to reach Laqua, which Terapagos and Rayquaza can lead to. He just wants to fulfill his grandfather's dream. He wants to be more than a grandson to him. He wants to live up to his expectations. This is all information we knew, of course, though this is the first time we hear Amethio actually spell it all out in such a way, clearly expressing how much he wants to please his grandfather and fulfill his calling. Clearly, there is a deeper story here. There has to be a reason why he is so devoted to his mission and to his grandfather. There's some backstory missing here that I hope we get someday. I can for sure say that it's related to Amethio's father, who is presumably Gibeon's son. Now, Terapagos gets triggered when it hears Amethio speak about all this, which I find interesting. At first I thought that maybe it knows Gibeon and hearing his name is enough to make Terapagos lose it, lending credence to my hypothesis that Gibeon might be related to Lucius in some way. However, it's also possible that just hearing Amethio say that he needs Terapagos to get to Laqua is enough to make it be hostile to him again, like earlier. This is reinforced by the fact that it watches Amethio closely. This allows it to realize just how serious he is about fulfilling his grandfather's ambition, which of course means danger for it. So Liko says that she's on a journey entrusted to her by her grandmother, which is also to get to Laqua, meaning that she and Amethio are walking the same path and at the behest of a grandparent of theirs. This mutual ground allows them to see each other in a different light, no longer being just the enemy after Terapagos and the girl with Terapagos. They both agree that there are things you'll never know if you don't hear other people out. This shared understanding and respect is exactly what I was hoping to see in this episode, so I was not disappointed. Also, the parallels between Liko and Amethio is something I have noticed before, and something that I've wanted them to delve into. Therefore, once again, I was not disappointed. Their conversation is soon interrupted when Amethio spots a small opening in the ceiling, which gives them a way out. So they get to work devising how. I love that Amethio says, "Liko, let's get out of here." I might be wrong here, but isn't this the first time he uses her name? This perfectly illustrates how their conversation from earlier changed how he perceives her. He now acknowledges her. He sees her, again, as more than just a girl with Terapagos. To make their escape, Floragato and the Cerulege fly up to the ceiling with Corviknight to attack the opening, aiming to make it bigger. While they struggle to do so, they eventually succeed, leading to a rain of debris that Hattrem deals with using Confusion and Brutal Swing. With their exit secured, they'll finally get out. I love that Amethio gives Liko a hand, showing that he's quite a gentleman, something that makes it even more difficult to see him as a villain. He warns Liko to be wary of Spinel, since he is clearly planning something and will surely set more traps in the future. Liko wonders if the Rising Bolt Tacklers and the Explorers can work together, since they are after the same thing. But Amethio says that they can't, since while their goal is the same, their path is different. He will follow his own path. As Liko and Amethio part ways, we see that Spinel saw everything. Meanwhile, Roy and Dot are cornered by Coral and Sidian. Just as Coral, who is sick of playing around, is about to end things by having Glalie use self-destruct, Grusha arrives to save the day. While it seems like a big battle is about to begin, Chelsea tells Coral and Sidian to retreat since they fulfilled their objective, and it wouldn't be wise to face a gym leader. Roy and Dot thank Grusha and they inform him of the situation, which he is aware of because of Freed. So they begin to search for Liko. They soon find the boulder used to separate her from the group. Altaria hilariously pecks it to smithereens, to reveal Liko, who happily reunites with her friends as Fried watches from above, realizing that his help wasn't needed this time. They all gather at a cabin to warm up. Liko apologizes to Grusha for making him worry. He says it's fine since things ended well, and he leaves as Liko ponders that yeah, she failed her implementation test, but there must be other paths she can take. As long as she doesn't give up, she will surely find success eventually, proving that Amethio helped her overcome her tendency to hesitate. Honestly though, this interaction between Liko and Grusha feels quite lacking, since there was no positive acknowledgement or reinforcement from him, nor any request or attempt from her to have a rematch or a second try. So their time together as opponents and potential teacher and student ends on an empty note with no meaningful lesson or change from either side. This leaves Grusha feeling like he didn't really contribute much to the story in terms of character development. But hey, at least we got to see him again. Even got to see him snowboarding, showing that yeah, he still got it. So Liko shares with the others what happened with Spinel, and Fried reveals what he knows about the Eternal Blessing. They all agree that the explorers are up to something, so Liko and friends will keep their eyes open going forward, while Fried heads back to the airship to plan and discuss their next steps with the rest of the team. Before Liko and friends head back to the academy though, they go to the highest peak in Paldea as intended. After admiring the view, they take a wholesome picture together. The episode then cuts to a meeting between the explorers. Amethio is ready to berate and question Spinel for what he did, however he is met with quite the bombshell. Spinel brands him as a traitor with Chelsea backing him up. The evidence that condemns Amethio is him helping Liko out of the cavern. While Coral, Hamber, and Sidian are willing to hear Amethio out, Gibeon is not so understanding. He deems Amethio a disappointment, he says that he doesn't want to see his face again, and he tells him to be gone. Ouch. He also says that Amethio is the same. I'm guessing he means the same as his father, who clearly did something that earned him similar scorn. Again, we need answers here. The episode ends with Amethio in utter frustration and despair. I knew Spinel was evil, but wow, he's so much worse than I thought. At first glance, it seemed like he just wanted to leave Amethio trapped in a cave forever. Which is bad enough, but his true objective ended up being something arguably even worse and more painful. Certainly more contrived. We know just how dedicated Amethio is to his grandfather and his dream. How much he wants to live up to what his grandfather expects of him. I mean, they obviously had this be made so clear in this episode for a reason. They wanted us to truly feel Amethio's pain, to know just how painful Gibeon's rejection is. It's for sure painful to see. So why do I think that this episode changes everything? Well, someone asked me recently in a comment if I believe Amethio could join the Rising Boat Tacklers. My answer was that I could see it happening since Amethio is an outcast within the Explorers, hated by the other admins. Now I'm even more confident in my answer. Not only was he officially kicked out of the Explorers, but he formed a clear bond with Liko, who even offered to work together to reach Laqua. He refused to do so, of course, but this was before he was fired. He might just be more willing to accept her offer now, meaning that he would go from villain to hero, from enemy to ally. This is a big change. Now yes, Amethio was betrayed and stabbed in the back, but he is not a traitor or a backstabber himself. Even if his comrades, including his own grandfather, toss him aside, I don't see him immediately choosing to return the favor. He might try to prove them wrong by reaching Laqua himself, especially because he is not completely alone. I'm sure Onya and Cirque will never forsake him. However, if he does follow his own path to Laqua, he might end up at odds with Liko. And I just don't see this happening now, after they had such positive interactions, clearly meant to show that Amethio is not evil and he can be an ally. They even parted on amicable terms without the classic "from now on we are enemies again." At the very least, he will work together with Liko and friends more often, considering he has already done so several times despite his affiliation with the Explorers. Now without this, he has even less reason to refuse cooperation. I could also see him joining the team temporarily, much like Diana did. So Amethio is definitely in a complicated position right now. It's difficult to say what he will do going forward, but whatever he does, things certainly won't be the same from now on. I'm interested to know what you think. Could Amethio join Liko and friends? Finally, I just want to mention that it's curious how Coral and Sidian were willing to let Amethio explain himself, suggesting that they don't hate him, at least not to Spinel's level, but they still helped to engineer his downfall. So are they just pretending to be sympathetic? Were they not aware of what Spinel had in mind? Are they just playing both sides, or are they trying to avoid being lumped together with Spinel and the Chelsea in Amethio's eyes as clear enemies? I can't help but wonder where they truly stand. Also, yeah, I was wrong about Liko breaking the rules by using Terrasto to escape from the cavern. Which is unfortunate, this would have added even more insanity to this episode. But I guess it's understandable given Liko's character and the fact that the situation did not end up being that dire. So overall, this episode was very good. It ended up being a lot better than I expected since it changes the game completely and monumentally. Regardless of what exactly ends up happening, things definitely won't be the same, which makes this a very meaningful and powerful episode that was very interesting and engaging the whole way through. But that's the review and the video. Please let me know what you think of this episode in the comments below, and click on the links on screen now to see my reviews of the previous 3 episodes. I will see you over there. Thank you so very much for watching.